In a small Mississippi town, Sister Naomi is known for her quiet grace and fading memory. After her husband passed, she began forgetting things, keys, names, dates. The church elders nodded sympathetically, told her to rest, prayed over her mind. But lately, her dreams have turned vivid, specific. In one, she sees the church's pastor burying a ledger beneath the floorboards of the pulpit. When a new associate pastor preaches a nearly identical sermon to one Naomi dreamt 2 nights before, something clicks. The verses, the tone, even the strange phrase, "The flock don't follow a wolf in sheep's tone." That's when Naomi starts writing things down, documenting her dreams, her suspicions, and the names whispered in her sleep. What follows is a slow unraveling of secrets cloaked in religion. A trail of hidden finances, a cover-up involving a missing teenage choir member, and a painful truth. Naomi's memory was never failing. It was trying to protect her from what she saw years ago. Before we uncover today's case, a quick reminder. If you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time. Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a single clue, twist, or breakthrough in the stories to come. Now, let's dive into the case. It was the second Sunday of August, the kind of day where the heat sits on your back like an unwanted hand. First Missionary Baptist Church stood proud and clean on the red clay ridge of Darlington, Mississippi, its white columns polished, its stained glass blinking the sun's glare like the eyelids of saints. Inside, the air smelled of starched linen, old Bibles, and the faint sweetness of Sister Louise's purse, mints. Sister Naomi sat in pew 5, aisle seat, where she always sat. Her left hand trembled slightly as it gripped the hymnal, but her eyes, soft brown and watching, were steady. She was 81 and had forgotten the name of the young usher who'd helped her up the steps that morning. She'd also forgotten where she left the old brass key to her husband's shed. Though she'd sworn, she'd set it down beside her spectacles. The women in the prayer group whispered kindly, "Sister Naomi's slippin' some. That age'll do it." Poor thing still wears her husband's watch like he comin' back. But Naomi knew what she saw in her dreams. 2 nights ago, she dreamt of the sanctuary, empty and silent, except for Pastor Ducree digging a hole beneath the pulpit. He was younger in the dream, beardless and sweating hard, and in his hands, a worn black ledger with red corners, tucked in a velvet sack. She could smell dust and cedar. She could hear him whisper, "Let no light fall on this truth." She didn't tell anyone. What kind of old woman says she's dreaming about men burying books under church floors? But now this morning, as the guest preacher Reverend Mays from Jackson stood at the pulpit and opened his Bible, Naomi's spine stiffened. His voice low, musical echoed a sentence she had heard in the dream. "The flock don't follow a wolf in sheep's tone." The exact words. Naomi didn't breathe. Reverend Mays continued, reading from Ezekiel, but her mind raced. That phrase wasn't in the Bible. It wasn't in any sermon she remembered from the last 50 years. But she'd heard it, clear as thunder, 2 nights ago. Her fingers pressed into the leather spine of the hymnal, knuckles white. Later that afternoon, Naomi sat on her porch, a fan in one hand and a notepad in the other. She jotted every word she could recall from the dream, every image, every smell, every phrase. August 8th. Dreamt again. Pastor digging. Ledger, red corners. Let no light fall on this truth. August 10th. Sermon phrase matched dream. Not coincidence. She paused. Her hand hovered over the paper. A strange dread pressed against her chest. Not fear of being wrong, but fear of what would happen if she was right. A blue jay landed on her railing, its head twitching like it knew something too. Naomi slowly rose from her rocker, walked back inside, and unlocked the drawer beneath her kitchen sink. Folded there was her late husband's old spiral notebook his truth book. He'd called it when he worked the graveyard shift at the paper mill and liked to write down the names of men who shorted him in poker. Naomi opened it, tore out the used pages, and began again. She would write down every dream, every whisper, every offhand look the deacons gave each other. If her mind was slipping, as they said, then this would be the net to catch what mattered before it vanished. And if it wasn't slipping, then someone in that church had buried more than just words. Naomi didn't go back to church that following Sunday. Instead, she sat at her kitchen table, a pot of chicory coffee growing cold beside her, and stared at the growing collection of yellowing notes in front of her. She'd written down everything, every dream, every strange feeling, and now, every name she remembered being close to Pastor Decree in those early years. She circled one name 3 times, Kiana Bell. 17 years old, sweet voice, satin skin. Led the choir with a presence that silenced even the fidgety boys in the front row. Naomi remembered her clearly, because Kiana used to sit beside her after choir rehearsals and braid her own hair while humming gospel songs under her breath. And then, one Wednesday, she was just gone. No funeral, no mention. Just moved upstate to live with her cousin, someone said. But Naomi now realized she had never seen a goodbye. Never saw the girl pack, no farewell hug. And nobody ever brought her up again. Until the dreams started 2 months ago. The first one, Naomi had brushed off as foolishness. But the second showed Kiana, barefoot, walking through the sanctuary, her choir robe trailing behind her like a veil. She was humming something broken and off-key. When Naomi asked her, "Baby, where you been?" the girl only looked at her and whispered, "Check the baptism tank." That was the night Naomi started writing. On Tuesday, Naomi decided to walk to the library. Her niece had warned her that she shouldn't be out in the heat, but Naomi waved her off. "Memory don't fail when your feet are moving," she muttered. The Darlington library was small and never updated. The computers clicked and groaned like tired lungs, and the back left corner still smelled like mildew. But Naomi didn't need the internet. She needed the Observer archives, the church bulletins and town announcements printed over the years, stacked in heavy binders, cataloged by month. She asked the clerk for January 2007 through April 2007. The girl behind the counter blinked. "You sure you want that old?" Naomi smiled. "Honey, I'm older." She spent 2 hours flipping pages. Wedding announcements, baptisms, men's breakfasts. But something gnawed at her gut. Between February 11th and March 25th, there was no bulletin. Just a blank space in the binder and a clipped note inside the sleeve. Pages missing due to printer malfunction. No record available. Naomi stared at the space. Her chest tightened. The week Kiana went missing? March 4th. She turned and looked at the clerk. "Y'all got any backup files of this time?" "Not from those years," the girl shrugged. Pastor Decree took the original copies home when the office flooded. Never brought them back. Of course he did. Naomi copied the names of every choir member from February. Kiana was listed. In April, her name was gone. Not replaced, just gone. As if she had never existed. That night, Naomi sat on her porch with her notebook in her lap and the neighborhood night air wrapping around her like a heavy shawl. The cicadas buzzed in waves. A car passed by slow. The only street lamp flickered once, then went out. She didn't flinch. She'd lived too long to be scared of shadows. Instead, she opened the notebook and added another entry. March 2007 bulletin missing. Kiana's name erased. Dream of baptism tank. Must check. Pastor had originals. She looked up at the church steeple in the distance, barely visible beyond the treetops. That building had buried something, and she'd lived long enough to dig it out one page, one dream, one memory at a time. Suddenly, a rustle. Naomi froze. Someone was standing across the street, just off the curb, in the shadows between the pecan tree and the old payphone post. She couldn't make out the face, but she saw a white shirt and a slight forward lean watching. "Who's that?" she called. No answer. She stood slowly, walking to the edge of her yard. The figure took a step back, and turned and walked away without a word, disappearing behind the Ferguson fence line. Naomi didn't chase. She just watched, whoever it was. They knew she was remembering, and they weren't happy about it. Naomi woke before the sun. She didn't sleep much anymore, too many memories pacing behind her eyelids like restless ghosts. But this morning felt heavier, like the air had weight, like something had already happened while she was still dreaming. She dressed in silence. No powder, no lipstick. Just a plain blue dress and the black orthopedic shoes her niece called funeral feet. Naomi didn't laugh when she said it. They were the kind of shoes made for hard ground, old steps, and standing still while truths landed like thunder. By 6:45 m, she was out the door with her notebook in her purse and a small flashlight tucked under her shawl. The church didn't unlock until 9, but Naomi still had the key her husband used when he volunteered as deacon before his stroke. Pastor Decree had never asked for it back. Maybe he forgot. Or maybe he assumed she had. The sanctuary was still and cool when she entered, its quiet almost reverent, like it knew what she was about to do. The stained glass windows cast pale light across the pews, fractured and watery. Dust motes floated in the beams like lazy spirits. She made her way to the back hall, past the storage closet and the coat hooks where children's jackets still hung from last Sunday. The baptismal chamber was tucked behind the choir loft, accessed through a side door most members never noticed. Naomi paused before opening it. She'd dreamt of this door 3 nights ago. Water rising, a robe floating, and the same black ledger sliding across tile like it had life. She pushed the door open. The baptism tank sat dry. It hadn't been used since Easter, according to the bulletin. But Naomi wasn't here for the water. She scanned the tiled floor, her eyes searching not for scripture, but for imperfection. Then she saw it. The 4th tile from the tank's edge was slightly off-kilter, just barely a hairline shift, like it had been lifted once and not set back right. She knelt slowly. Her knees cracked like old tree limbs. With the handle of her flashlight, she tapped the tile gently, hollow. She whispered a prayer, not for fear, but for memory, that her mind was still sharp enough to follow this all the way through. She wedged the flashlight under the edge and lifted. The tile popped free with a soft scrape, revealing a cavity underneath. It wasn't deep, but it wasn't empty either. Inside was a cloth-wrapped bundle, dusty, damp at the edges. Naomi reached in and pulled it out with both hands, heart pounding not from fear, but recognition. The cloth was choir robe fabric, blue satin. Inside, a small spiral notebook, red corners, and next to it, a pair of silver earrings, little gospel treble clefs. Naomi remembered them. Kiana wore them every Sunday. Her mama had given them to her when she turned 16. She turned the first page of the notebook, March 2nd. He said it was just rehearsal, but he locked the door after the others left. Naomi stopped reading. Her hand trembled. This wasn't just memory. This was evidence. This was a voice that had been buried. Suddenly, footsteps. Somewhere in the front of the sanctuary. Naomi's heart seized. She slid the tile back in place, tucked the bundle into her purse, and stood. The footsteps came again closer now. She could hear the faint creak of wood near the choir loft. She didn't wait. Naomi slipped out the side door, closed it gently, and moved down the hallway like she had somewhere to be and no time to explain it. She turned the corner just in time to see a shadow dart out the main doors. Too fast to catch. Too familiar to dismiss. Someone knew she'd been in there. By late afternoon, Naomi sat in her living room, blinds drawn. The bundle lay unwrapped on her coffee table, notebook open beside a cassette tape labeled March Choir Practice Rough. She didn't own a cassette player anymore, but her neighbor upstairs, Mr. Porter, collected vintage electronics. She'd ask him tomorrow. Right now, she only read. Every line a slow excavation of a buried voice. March 4th. I told Sister Yvonne I didn't feel right. She said, "That's just the Spirit working through you." But I wasn't feeling the Spirit. I was scared. March 11th. He said no one would believe me if I talked. Sighed, I'd be ruining the church. I wish I'd never told him about the scholarship. Naomi closed the notebook. Her throat ached. She reached for her own and began writing. Found Kiana's notebook. Tape exists. Needs to be heard. Someone's still watching me. Moving faster now. Outside, the same street lamp that had gone dark the other night sparked to life. Just for a moment. Then off again. Naomi stared at it through the slit in the blinds, her eyes unblinking. If they wanted her to forget, they should have buried her with the truth. Naomi didn't sleep that night. She sat upright in her recliner, the cloth-wrapped bundle open beside her like a sleeping child, its breath heavy with memory. Her living room clock ticked louder than usual, and every creak in the walls felt like an approach. But she wasn't afraid. Not anymore. By 7:30 a.m., she was standing outside Mr. Porter's apartment upstairs, clutching the cassette tape and her purse. When he opened the door in his robe, blinking from sleep, Naomi simply held out the tape. "You still got that old boombox?" "Still works," he said, stepping aside. "Been trying to sell it for years." She didn't respond, just sat at his kitchen table as he popped the tape in and hit play. There was static first, then laughter, girls laughing, then singing. "Lord, keep me day by day." Naomi closed her eyes. She recognized Kiana's voice, instantly bright and full of spirit, pushing slightly ahead of the others, like a bird trying to fly out of the cage. Then a thud, a pause, and the laughter died. A man's voice entered the room, firm and clipped. "Y'all done?" "Good." Everybody else dismissed. Another pause, muffled footsteps, then silence, then, "Kiana, you stay back. I need a word." The audio was muffled, but the tone wasn't. Naomi felt her spine stiffen. "No, I should go." "Don't act new. You want that letter signed for that scholarship, don't you?" "That's not what. Don't make me raise my voice in this church. You think anybody gonna believe you over me? The Spirit don't favor the rebellious." Click. The tape stopped. Mr. Porter sat stunned, hand hovering over the eject button. Naomi nodded once. "Make me a copy," she said quietly. By noon, Naomi walked into First Missionary Baptist like it was any other Tuesday. Only it wasn't. She had called Deacon Russell that morning, told him she had something urgent to share, told him to gather the full deacon board and invite Pastor Ducree. No one refused her. Maybe because they still saw her as old Sister Naomi, who sat in the 5th pew. Or maybe because something in her voice didn't tremble. The meeting took place in the fellowship hall. Pastor Ducree was already seated when Naomi arrived, flanked by 2 deacons on each side. He smiled, polite but tight. "Sister Naomi," he said, "what can we help you with?" She didn't answer right away, just placed her notebook, the red-cornered ledger, and a portable speaker on the table. Then she pressed play. The room listened. No one spoke. By the time the tape clicked off, Ducree's smile had disappeared. His fingers trembled as he reached for his collar, loosening it. This is edited. This is slander," he began, but Naomi raised her hand. "No," she said. "This is a voice you buried, and a record you stole." Deacon Russell looked pale. Sister Granger from the board whispered, "Dear God." Naomi opened Kiana's notebook to the entry, marked March 11th, and read it aloud. "He said no one would believe me." Sighed I'd be ruining the church? She paused, then met Decree's eyes. You ruined it yourself. There was silence, and Sister Granger stood. I move we suspend Pastor Decree effective immediately pending formal investigation, she said, her voice steady, and that we notify the authorities. No one opposed. Not one voice defended him. Decree stood slowly. You don't understand what I've given to this church, Naomi cut him off. We remember what you took. 2 weeks later, a quiet memorial was held for Kiana Bell at the park near the bayou. Naomi read a letter aloud she'd written to the girl's mother, who'd passed away 6 years earlier from heart failure. The town came. Even those who had long stopped going to church. Someone brought sunflowers. Someone else played her favorite gospel hymn on a Bluetooth speaker. Lord, keep me day by day. The note drifted upward into the summer sky. Naomi returned to her porch that night, notebook in hand. She flipped to the final page and wrote in careful script. Kiana's voice was not lost. My mind was never failing. They wanted silence. But the truth still sings. She closed the book. Across the street, the flickering street lamp finally buzzed back to life. This time, it stayed on. The end. They said her memory was failing, but they forgot who she was before they buried the truth. Some voices don't vanish, they echo until someone listens. If you felt something watching this, don't scroll past it, because the next case is like this. It's already on its way, somewhere, and the silence around it is already forming. This story wasn't about drama. It was about reality, about broken systems, blind spots, and decisions made too late. You don't need to be a detective to see the pattern. You just need to pay attention. So before it happens again, speak up, ask the uncomfortable questions, push for accountability. Don't wait for the cuffs or the body count. Your voice matters more than you know. Like, share, comment, be part of the reason it doesn't happen again.